Hey there, welcome to the channel. So today I'm super excited because I made gluten-free cinnamon rolls for the first time. So stick around through the entire video so you can see the successes and the challenges and decide if you want to make these in your kitchen. I'm Jamie with SavorySaver. I share gluten-free recipes, tips, tricks, and resources to make your gluten-free lifestyle easier. So please consider hitting subscribe and let's get started. Okay guys, so this recipe comes from Wheat by the Wayside, which is a blog site that is gluten-free. Katie at Wheat by the Wayside is the creator of this recipe, and I've not made any of her recipes, but I've looked at quite a few. So I decided to make this one. Part of the reason I decided to make this one is because it uses Caputo Gluten Free Flour blend. And this blend right here is my favorite blend right now for gluten-free pizza crust. So if you want to check out that video for my gluten-free pizza crust, I will link to it. It does have, like 5 or 6 ingredients in it. So always read your ingredients to make sure you can have everything in it. I do have one viewer that watched the pizza crust video and there's an item in there that they can't have. So check this out. I will link to it below. It is a little pricey. It's about $18, $19 for a bag. I can actually get it local here at Wegmans for a little bit cheaper. But guys, this is well worth it if you're making pizza crust at home. I feel that it's better than what I can get out as a frozen pizza for Terra, and it's better than what we're gonna get out somewhere on some gluten-free pizza crust that they've just bought frozen and are putting their toppings on. So check this out. Now, we've done enough talking about where I got this recipe, so let's go ahead and make it. So for this recipe, you are gonna probably need your stand mixer because it mixes for about 3 minutes, and you obviously don't wanna do that by hand, and probably don't wanna try it with a hand mixer, but by all means, if that's all you have, I would definitely still try it with the hand mixer, but the dough is gonna be thick. So, to the bowl of the stand mixer, I have 280 grams of the Caputo Gluten Free Flour blend. And Katie measures this by weight, but everything else is by volume. So I kind of wish it was one way or another. I recently asked in a poll if you guys measured by weight or volume, and you guys are kind of like me. I think more votes were for it just depends on the recipe. So this does have both types of measurements on it. So if you have a scale, you may want to measure it out, but it's about 2 1/3 cups of that blend if you don't have a scale. To that, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of brown sugar. I'm going to add 2 1/4 teaspoons of psyllium husk powder. I'm going to add 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast, which is also rapid rise yeast or bread machine yeast. That's about 1 packet if you don't have a big container of it. I'm gonna give it a quick whisk now before I add the salt. I'm gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of table salt, and I'm gonna give it another quick whisk. Part of the reason I just whisk this is because the directions don't say with the stand mixer what attachment we're using. I'm assuming it's going to be the flat paddle attachment, which is what I'm going to use. But I wanted to whisk everything together dry before putting it in there, just because I think it'll mix it better with this as opposed to the paddle attachment. Now that our dry ingredients have been whisked and we've got our bowl and our flat beater attachment ready to go, we're going to stream in 3/4 cup of milk that has been warmed between 120 and 130 degrees. Just until it's combined. Once it's combined, we're gonna add 2 room temperature eggs to the mix and blend it for about a minute on medium speed until it's combined. Finally, we're gonna add 1 stick, which is 1/2 cup of unsalted softened butter, room temperature, and we're gonna add that and make sure it's on medium speed, and we're going to beat that for about 2 minutes until it's thick and smooth. So my mixer's going on low to add the milk, then the eggs, and then we'll add the butter. This is mixed for about a minute. Now let's add our softened butter and beat it for another 2. So it's been 2 minutes and our mixture is thick and smooth like the recipe says. So I'm gonna put this off to the side for just a minute and let's get our filling made. So for the filling mix, you're gonna need 6 to 8 tablespoons of very soft butter. So this is softened, but I wanna make sure it's spreadable. So I'm gonna take just my spatula and I'm gonna mix it up just to make sure it's super soft. Because I wanna make sure it's gonna spread over those cinnamon rolls, and I have a feeling that the dough is already gonna be hard to work with. Okay, so I've mixed that up pretty good, so hopefully it's gonna be more spreadable for me. Next, you wanna take 1/3 cup of brown sugar and a tablespoon of cinnamon, and you wanna blend those together. All right, everything is blended together, so let's get back to our dough. Okay, so here's our dough, and one thing you want to do about a minute into that mixing time of the 2 minutes, stop and scrape your bowl down. I did not do that, the recipe did not say that, and I definitely had some of the starches wanting to stick to the bottom of the bowl. So take a minute and scrape everything down really well so everything gets incorporated. So now we're gonna need to roll this out as best we can. So I have got a silicone baking mat here. You could also use parchment paper. And I use this on and off because it's pretty flexible. It's, I can clean it. Hopefully we don't have the bread sticking to it or whatever else we're making. So this is what I use a lot of times. So I'm gonna sprinkle it with some of my gluten-free flour blend, and the recipe actually says to use whatever you have. So whatever the inexpensive blend is that you use, or the less expensive brand, use that. I'm going pretty heavy only because I don't know how much to use and I don't want it to stick any more than it's going to. So let's get our dough onto the mat. Now it says to sprinkle a little more on the top over the dough, so we're gonna do that. And I've got the rolling pin out. The directions say to use a rolling pin that's been floured, and it says to roll it into an 11 by 13 inch rectangle, as close as you can get, and you want it to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. So we're gonna try with the rolling pin, and I may move to my hands depending on how sticky this dough is. All right, let's see how this does. I'm already having some sticking issues, which means I'm gonna need more flour. Okay, it doesn't feel sticky now. I'm gonna try this again. I've cleaned off my pin and it's dry and floured again. So that is much better. It's not sticking at the moment. The butter looks like it was incorporated nicely. I'm gonna go square it up some as well, as I need to. And we're gonna flour a little bit more as we need to. Got my bench scrape, let's see if that helps us square it up a little bit. Okay guys, so it's about 11 by 13. I actually dug out the tape measure. So it's about 13.5 that way and maybe 11.5 to 12 this way, but we're gonna call it good. Now we're gonna attempt to spread this butter all over the dough in an even layer, and you wanna leave about 1 inch along one side. So it can be right up to the edge on these, but you wanna leave about 1 inch here or 1 inch here, depending on how you're gonna roll it. I think the best way to do this is, again, to make sure everything is soft. You know what? I think I'm gonna microwave this for about 3 to 5 seconds. All right, so let's try to spread this on. I did about 3 to 5 second intervals, 2 or 3 times, at full power and just stirred it in each time, and it's actually nice and soft. So hopefully it's gonna spread better for us. I'm also gonna dollop it across and then try spreading it, so I'm not trying to spread it all across the whole thing. All right, I'm gonna try to spread out with this, and I will grab an offset spatula if it doesn't work. Okay guys, I've been doing this for a minute or so. It is very tedious, but it is working, so be patient if you make this recipe. This is not something that's gonna take you 2 seconds and it's gonna be done. We're dealing with some gluten-free dough here, and you guys know how that works. So just spread it across, and then all that stuff on the back of the offset, I'm just scraping it off and moving it to a place that needs more butter. And then back to the offset spatula. Okay, so I've got the butter spread out all the way across. So I'm gonna take our brown sugar cinnamon mix, we're gonna spread it evenly across the butter and the dough. Sprinkle high, you'll get better coverage. Okay, everything's evenly spread. Now we have to roll these up. So I'm gonna start with one of the long sides. We're gonna roll up to the side that I didn't cover with as much butter. I'm gonna use my mat to help me. So use that or your parchment paper if you're using that. And let's see how we do. I'm gonna gently roll it and then unstick the dough as it goes. And then hopefully once we get it started, it'll go a little better for us. And if I have to use my fingers, I'm probably gonna flour them down a little bit. Now it says to pinch the ends together. So I think I'm gonna push it down. And it does say to gently do this. I don't know how gentle I'm being at the moment. And then I'm gonna turn it this way, I think. And I'm gonna try to pinch all this together. Okay, so now I've got a square baking dish. It does not say if we need to butter it or not, so this is nonstick. I'm not going to. We'll see if I pay for that later. It also says you can use a round pie pan, but you want to get 9 cinnamon rolls out of this. So let's see how I do. I've got my serrated knife, and don't cut through your silicone mat if you're using that. In fact, maybe I need to keep rolling it right onto a piece of parchment paper. All right, let's just roll this onto some parchment paper so I don't cut my silicone mat. It's actually rolling really well. So I think what I'm gonna do is start in the middle as best I can. And again, serrated knife. Let's just gently saw it back and forth. You could also try with dental floss. And then we're gonna need to wipe the knife off every time. So just be aware of that. I'm finding the knife is not working well for me, but I'm gonna use my bench scrape and just real quickly down and up and then clean it off. I think that's gonna work a little better. So I'm gonna keep working on this and then get them into the pan. Guys, I've gone back to my offset spatula to help me get them into the pan. They are difficult to work with, but we're gonna keep moving. Okay, So I've got these in the pan, and let's just start by saying these are a mess. Not easy to work with, barely look like any kind of cinnamon roll. Dough or batter all over the parchment paper. We need to let these rise until they double. You want to cover it with plastic wrap or a kitchen towel. I am going to spray a little bit of cooking spray on that plastic wrap. You want to rise it for about an hour to an hour and a half. It says until it's doubled. Again, guys, this is my opinion on this recipe, but right now I can tell you I would probably not make it again unless these are really, really tasty. So let's cover it up, get it to rise. So while that rises, I'm going to show you how to make the frosting for these, and the frosting hopefully will cover up all of this imperfection. So for our icing, we're just going to make a real basic cream cheese icing. I've got 2 ounces of cream cheese, 2 tablespoons of softened butter, and I'm just going to blend that for a minute just to get everything whipped together. Okay, the butter and the cream cheese are whipped together. Let's get them back in the bowl. Next, we're going to add our powdered sugar. I've got 1.5 cups of powdered sugar that we're adding. To the powdered sugar, I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now I'm going to whip it all together. We're going to see how spreadable it looks when it's done. If I need to, I'll add just a drop or 2 of milk, but I want to mix it up first and see what it looks like. Scrape the bowl down, get everything back into it. It's not coming together as fast as I would like, but I'm going to give it just another minute before I add anything to it. Guys, just scraping that bowl down and putting everything together and then turning it back on was enough to bring it together. So let's do that one more time and get the rest of that powdered sugar incorporated. Okay, so here's the cream cheese frosting or icing that's all come together. Now I'm going to pop the gluten-free cinnamon rolls into the oven, bake them for 20 to 25 minutes until golden, and then we'll ice them. So it's been 20 minutes. I don't think they need the 25 minutes because we have golden all the way around. The 2 that were the end pieces still by far look like the best cinnamon rolls of the bunch, but you can still see some turns in the other pieces. And honestly, if they taste good and this is a first recipe attempt, I'm not going to be too upset. Once they cool off for just a couple minutes, I'm going to put the cream cheese icing on them. So I'm going to show you guys that in a couple minutes, and then we're going to give them a taste. Okay, let's get these gluten-free cinnamon rolls iced. I'm going to start with a little over half. Got my offset spatula. I'm going to push that all around. We'll see if that's enough. The extra can be used for dipping on the side, or we'll use it to cover the rest of these if it doesn't work. So they're not the prettiest, but they are totally covered, and I do have some leftover, so I think I'm going to put that in a small bowl off to the side and keep it in the fridge for dipping. Let's cut into these. So here's our cinnamon roll. I have not tasted this yet. I just wanted to show you what it looked like. Looks like it's cooked all the way through, so I'm happy about that. The icing has melted just a little bit on the top, which is nice. Looks like there's cinnamon all the way through, which that was my concern, as hard as they were for me to cut. Let's give it a taste. Okay, here we go. I gotta say, these are pretty good. It's kind of a cross between a cinnamon roll and maybe cake. The dough is not as bread-like as cinnamon rolls are. It's a little bit lighter than I feel cinnamon rolls are when traditionally made, but it looks like it's rolled all the way through, which is nice. They're not overly sweet, which is nice because the icing is sweet and we have that sweet filling, but they're not super sweet overall, so there's a good balance there. Great texture, even if it's not totally cinnamon roll texture for me. So let's go over just a couple things with this recipe that gave me challenges. The biggest challenge for me was the rolling it and the slicing, which I think is going to be the biggest challenge for all of you if you make this. So with the rolling, the one thing I would say is put a little more flour down on your parchment paper or your silicone mat than you think you need. Also, put a little bit more on the top and pat it out with your hand before you attempt to roll it. That way there, it's already starting in the shape that you need. Use a bench scrape to help you square up those sides, and use, the rolling pin to help guide you, but rolling it really wasn't as bad as I expected it to be, stickiness-wise, with enough flour. In spreading the butter across the cinnamon roll base, use super softened butter. You don't want any kind of coolness or stiffness to it, or it just won't spread. Use an offset spatula to help you with that, and dollop it across the top first, so you're not trying to spread all of the butter across the entire dough. Rolling it up, use the side of your parchment paper or silicone mat to help you with rolling it. And cutting it, which was my biggest issue. For one, the directions said cut them in about 1.5 inch thick slices, which I did not get, and I read the thing like 5 times. So make sure you're cutting them thick enough that they might be easier to deal with. Use a serrated knife or a dental floss because the dough is soft and is supposed to be. So be gentle with it and give yourself a little bit of time to work with it, because for me, it was frustrating. Rise time was great. They rose, they got puffy, I really like the rise time. My nonstick pan, I had no problems getting it out of the pan. If you had it in a pie plate, they would be a little more round probably, and you can shape them after they're in the pan. Baking, my oven took 20 minutes. Yours may take 22 minutes. It may take 25 minutes. You want them golden brown on the top. Let it cool for just a minute or two before you ice the top, and then you're good to go. Guys, that's all I have for today. Did I do this recipe justice? I'm sure Katie at Wheat by the Wayside has made these many times, and the first time she made it, they probably didn't come out perfect either. So if you make this recipe and you have good results, do it again so you can have great results. That's all I've got for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.